Strategic Partnership Officer for Truman VA. I'm filling in for Dr. Hall, who is out and can't make it to Time with Trish today. Although we do have our cardboard cutout of Dr. Hall, who is happy to preside over this. Today, I'm with Denise Heat, the Program Manager for Caregiver Support, and Lauren Sprague, the General Caregiver Support Coordinator for Truman VA. Today, we're going to answer your questions on caregiver support resources and services. So if you have a question during this interview, please feel free to put your questions in the comment section. We'll be happy to answer it as they come. So, ladies, can you tell us what is the Caregiver Support Program?
Sure. So the Caregiver Support Program is a coordinated effort across our country as a means to recognize caregivers and as a means to really incorporate them into our veterans treatment planning. There's a multitude of reasons to include caregivers and to be able to support them as we work to keep our veterans out of nursing homes, as we work to keep our veterans safe and healthy, and ultimately to provide those supports and support and training that our caregivers may need in their role, which can become incredibly difficult over time. So at Truman VA and across the country, every VA has a caregiver support program and every VA has caregiver support coordinators. The caregiver support program is an overarching umbrella over what we call the Program of General Caregiver Support and the Program of Comprehensive Assistance for Family Caregivers. Lauren is our General Caregiver Support Coordinator, and I'm the Caregiver Support Program Manager. So Lauren will be speaking about the Program of General Caregiver Support, and I'll talk to you about the comprehensive program, which includes some enhanced benefits.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for just giving us a general overview of that. But who actually qualifies for caregiver support? Is it everybody or?
So if you are a caregiver providing some level of oversight, supervision, or personal care service to a caregiver, you can potentially qualify for the General Caregiver Support Program. I work with caregivers of veterans of all eras, so World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Persian Gulf, all the way up to post 9/11. So really a wide variety of caregivers who are caring for veterans with a wide variety of needs.
In relation to the comprehensive program of family caregivers, veterans currently who discharged after 9/11 and are service connected for a serious injury qualify for that program. They qualify to apply. The application process is a multi-step process. With the passage of the VA Mission Act, expansion of the Caregiver Support Program to include veterans of all eras will be coming soon. We anticipate late summer, early fall. We don't have a date for that yet, but at that time, an application would be submitted. It's called a 1010CG, and you can access that online at www.caregiver.va.gov, or you can contact your caregiver support coordinator at Truman VA or at any VA in our country, and they can help you through that application process.
Great. So tell me a little bit about what's included in the caregiver support program, because it sounds like it could be either pretty broad or more specific. So can you give us a little update on that?
Sure. So there are a multitude of resources, education, and programming that are available for caregivers. I do one-on-one education and support with caregivers of veterans of all eras. We have online workshops that are available. There's Building Better Caregivers, which is online and offered through the National Caregiver Support Program Office. We have telephone support groups for caregivers. I can help make referrals to wraparound services, so things like respite care. If the veteran is in need of in-home assistance, we can help make those referrals on behalf of the veteran and really connect the caregiver to other supports that could exist within the VA and beyond. So it's really a wide variety of what we can offer. and I can speak a little bit more to that at the end of our segments and offer that sort of information as well.
In relative to the comprehensive program of family caregivers, what is included are enhanced benefits. So if a veteran and a caregiver apply for the comprehensive program, they complete that 1010 CG, they will then be called by a coordinator, and that coordinator will go through a very in-depth screening, kind of looking at what are the veteran's needs, what is the caregiver doing. It's often in a veteran's medical record, a caregiver might be identified as being in the room, but it doesn't always talk about what that caregiver is doing. And with the Caregiver Support Program and the comprehensive program, that stipend is not a veteran benefit. That stipend is a caregiver benefit. So it's very imperative that we look at what is the caregiver doing, and does that meet the clinical criteria set forth from Washington. So the first step in that application process will be a very in-depth screening with the caregiver to get his or her perspective on the veteran's needs and what they're doing. We then have a team of interdisciplinary folks who will look at that. They'll look at the self-report by the caregiver, but they'll also review the veteran's medical record, and they'll look at various scoring criteria that are provided from the national office in Washington, D.C., and they make a determination on a clinical level as to whether that veteran meets the clinical criteria, and if so, at what level of care. If that veteran does meet clinical criteria, there is still steps to the application process. The caregiver is then referred for a training, and the VA contracts with an organization called TechWorks, and the caregiver does a training which can be done online or with a workbook mailed to his or her home, and they do a post-test, and after that training, we do have a nurse and a social worker go into the home, and they'll assess the home for any safety concerns and ensure that that veteran has all the adaptive equipment and everything that they may need to remain at home and be safe and comfortable. Following completion of that home visit, that would then end the application process. So the application process is a multi-step process that involves many disciplines and many reviews on many levels. Most importantly, to ensure that we're being good stewards of our taxpayer dollars, but also to ensure our veterans have what they need in their homes to be safe and healthy. And then after that completion of the application process and all criteria is met, veterans and caregivers are visited every 90 days by a registered nurse and our social worker to ensure that they have everything they need in the home and to ensure that we're meeting their needs.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds pretty extensive. Thanks for walking us through that application process on the comprehensive caregiver side. Can you tell us a little bit about the application process or how people can get into the general caregiver program?
Sure. So with the general caregiver program, there is no application that is needed. The best way to go about getting a referral to the general caregiver program is to speak with your veteran's primary care team, and then they can get in contact with me and I will contact you to discuss the general program a bit further in detail as to what I could potentially offer you, if there's any supports or services that you might need out in the community. But again, no application needed. I work with veterans and caregivers of all eras. Easiest way to getting into contact with me would be to contact your veteran's primary care team.
Great. So I know, this is great, and I know a lot of our caregivers are probably feeling a little isolated right now. Can you talk about some of the groups or classes we may have for veterans and their caregivers that can help support them?
So I am starting to offer telephone support groups for caregivers. They will be topic specific. So starting tomorrow, actually, I'm going to be offering a support group for caregivers of veterans who have dementia. In August, I am planning to offer an advanced care planning group for caregivers. When I was an inpatient social worker here, I worked with veterans all the time as far as advanced care planning, so medical power of attorneys, healthcare advance directives, and I have been wanting for a long time to open that up to caregivers. So in August, we're actually going to be able to do that. We are planning to offer that in person here at the VA. It's going to be a very small group, 10 caregivers at a maximum. But caregivers will be able to come to the VA. They can receive a free medical power of attorney. I will be leading the class, and I can answer any questions, concerns that a caregiver may have as far as it relates to advanced healthcare planning. So we have more groups and classes in the works, but those are two of the upcoming events that we're planning to offer to caregivers.
That's great. And on a national level, we are able to connect caregivers with peers that the national office has a peer support mentoring program, and that is something that we can connect our caregivers to locally. If there's a caregiver in another part of the country that may be very specific to a certain kind of diagnosis that requires care that others may not be used to giving, or if you're a parent of a caregiver, a lot of caregivers may be spouses, they may be older children, adult children, they may be parents. Kind of connecting you with that person who's in the same kind of arrangement and somebody who might understand your situation a little better is something we can do as well. We also have online workshops. It's called Building Better Caregivers, and that is a workshop that caregivers can be involved in, and they're able to chat with other caregivers late at night. If they want to get online and chat with a caregiver, that's something they can do. And then we also have national telephone support groups. So every month there is a support group that's offered. There's specific topics. And I think the first part of that is like an educational kind of call. And then there's the opportunity to talk and connect with other caregivers as well. The best way to connect with that would be just to call us. We would get you registered, get you connected with any of those national or local supports that might be helpful to you.
That's great. I'm just going to check to see if there's any questions at this time. Don't forget, if you do have a question, please make sure that you put it in the comment section. I'll continue with the last question that we have for our Caregiver Support Program coordinators. COVID has interrupted a lot of our lives, and we're looking at telemedicine and virtual care more and more often. So can you tell me a little bit about how COVID has changed how you assist with caregivers during this time?
So with the general program, the vast majority of the support, education, and resources that we can offer caregivers is over the phone or online. As I mentioned earlier, we're planning to have the in-person advanced care planning group, but I'm on the phone all day long with caregivers, connecting with them, providing support, with the telephone support groups that we're going to offer. That's been something that, COVID hasn't really changed that for us. We've adapted. We can do video connect if a caregiver would like to connect with someone over the computer. We have that capability. As Denise had mentioned, there are online workshops through Building Better Caregivers. There are self-care courses that are offered through the National Caregiver Support Program. All of that is virtual at this time. So that has really helped us connect with caregivers and to let them know they're not alone. We're still here for them. We have so many options available to folks. It just takes you all reaching out to us to let us know what you might need, and we can connect you to those virtual resources.
And COVID has impacted the way we are able to go into our veterans and caregivers' homes and be able to have that hands-on in their home assistance. However, we are utilizing VA Video Connect, and we are starting to do some home visits again as well. We are very cognizant of the veteran and caregiver's preference when it comes to them feeling safe and having someone in their home. We're following all the social distancing guidelines, the masking, the sanitizer, and ensuring that we're all being incredibly safe in this time of very intense time of change. And then also what we'll be doing is as we continue to expand and build upon the program, we will be taking into account the rurality of many of our veterans and caregivers. It's not always feasible for them to come to Columbia for things, and so virtual is really a very plausible way of reaching out to everyone and ensuring that everyone has equal opportunity to be able to get some supports and resources. We just really want everyone to know that caregivers are an integral part and often feel very invisible in the whole scheme of things, and they can get very tired. And so we just want to be there for them and to educate our public and the providers of what we can do to support them.
That's great. Yeah, Denise, I think you touch on a really important part that, you know, our caregivers do sometimes feel invisible, but I think the fact that the VA is really putting this out there and letting our caregivers know that we see them and we appreciate everything that you're doing for our veterans. Without you, our jobs would be much more difficult. During this time, I just want to say thank you, Denise.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Lauren, for being here. And if you have a comment, we would love to hear it. Looks like we have got one.
Yeah, you have one that is a veteran who works part-time eligible for CSP.
So he could be. It is very much dependent upon the clinical eligibility assessment and those veterans' needs. So a veteran would apply for the program, and our coordinator would do that in-depth screening with the caregiver, and after that, the clinical determination would be made by looking at that veteran's medical record and the clinical criteria given to us from our national office. So there's no yes or no to that without taking into account all of the accommodations that veteran may be getting while working part-time. There's a lot of factors that can go into that. So I would encourage, if a veteran is administratively eligible at this time, that would mean a veteran is they discharged after September 11th, 2001, and they're service connected for a serious injury. If you have any doubts, just call us and we can talk you through that process. And when expansion occurs, veterans of all eras will then be eligible to apply. The Federal Register has been closed on the proposed regulations for expansion, but we do not know those final regulations at this time.
And I would also add that for the caregiver for this veteran, even if the veteran is working part-time, the online resources like Building Better Caregivers, the telephone support groups, the one-on-one supportive and education and counseling that I provide to caregivers, that caregiver could quite possibly be eligible for the services that the general program can offer as well.
Great. Well, why don't you let us know how veterans and their caregivers can get a hold of you while we wait for maybe a few more comments to come through. So Denise, do you want to start?
Sure. So the main number to the Caregiver Support Program at the VA, at Truman VA, is 573-814-6204. And when you call that number, you're going to get a recording, and that recording will help guide you through who you might want to talk to and provide VA cell numbers. Once the VA cell numbers are provided, once you reach us, we give you our VA cell numbers so we can have that one-to-one contact in the future. One of the ways that we centralize that is just to have that main phone number, because we all have different VA cell numbers. And so that's one way to connect with us and get you to the right person. Ultimately, as well, we have a caregiver support line, and that number I don't know by heart. It is 1-855-260-3274, and that is staffed with licensed staff, clinical social workers, and they're in Canandaigua, New York, and they will actually take calls all hours of the day and night. When they're not in service, the phone is forwarded to the Veterans Crisis Line. So that is a way for caregivers to be able to get support for themselves too. Or if they just want to talk with someone about, I need help, kind of how do I deal with this, or it's after hours and you need someone to talk to, that's a line you can call. The other option is our website, which I mentioned earlier, www.caregiver.va.gov. That site provides tips by diagnosis. It provides toolkits. It provides names and numbers of coordinators at VAs across the country, and will also connect you with other caregivers. It provides links to everything we've talked about today, essentially, except for maybe some of our local support groups that we're just developing.
Great. And Lauren, can you provide some information on how they can get in touch with you?
Sure. So, as Denise had mentioned, you can call that local number and it will help you triage to whom you're wanting to get a hold of. If you would like to go through the veteran's primary care provider or primary care team, that's a great way to get a hold of me. And then my work cell phone number is 573-355-7788. So that's a direct way to get a hold of me if you have questions about the General Caregiver Support Program.
So, do we have any other
Yeah,
comments?
there's one last question. They want to know what time is the dementia class tomorrow that you're hosting?
Oh, yeah. So the support group is at 5:30 p.m. So if the commenter is interested, please reach out to me because there is a little bit of a pre-assessment that I would do with that caregiver. But again, my work cell number is 573-355-7788, and yes, that's scheduled for tomorrow.
Well, fantastic. Well, viewers, we want to thank you for joining us, and we want to thank again Denise and Lauren for providing such wonderful information about the Caregiver Support Program. We want to hear from you. We want to know what healthcare topics you're interested in hearing about for the next time with Trish. So, please leave a comment after the video so we can take a look at that and see how we can best provide this information to you. Thank you so much for watching Time with Trish, and we'll see you again next month.